Hey guys, it's Rachel. It's Thankful Thursday. I'm not quite myself today. I unfortunately lost one of my cats yesterday. It was like really sudden, and I think, well, they're convinced that it was like heart failure. So I lost my little Bailey, and I've had him since he was a baby, so he's got two brothers who are still here as well, but yeah, so I'm kind of a bit of a space cadet today, so not quite myself, but I wanted to get this video up. I'd kind of forgotten that it was Thursday actually. This week Kel and I are looking at ways of coping with alone time, really, and how to manage that time and staying safe, and ways of coping healthily. I made the rota for this month, and I kind of wanted to look at eating disorders and really other mental health issues, but not necessarily mental health issues with regards to not just things to do with alcohol and drugs and self-injury, and I know that's some of the things that have been covered this week, and medication, and I think that tomorrow it's going to be sort of looking at healthcare and getting treatment, and then sort of physical implications of stuff to do with eating disorders, then dealing with anxiety. So it wasn't just specifically eating disorders and other mental health problems, it was sort of mental health issues, because I think that a great number of people who watch our videos don't suffer with an eating disorder within isolation, and kind of do have comorbid problems, or do just kind of struggle with different elements, really. I thought it was really important to look at alone time, because I know that's something that's been quite challenging for me, and remains quite challenging, to be honest. I haven't ever lived on my own, I mean, apart from when I first went to university before all of this stuff happened, and even at that point I was kind of in hall, so I do struggle with being on my own, and I kind of struggle with being on my own because I'm that type of person. I'm not the type of person who needs, I do need my space, but I like to have my space, say, in another room, even though the people are in the house, and so being on my own can quite often trigger quite a lot of difficult feelings, especially because I have issues with abandonment, and kind of feeling self-assured and feeling safe actually on my own. I don't kind of just want to ramble about myself here. I kind of really want to bring up some important elements. I'm just struggling to get my brain to work. I think that when you start to recover, you, at least for me and people who I've spoken to, you begin to lean on people again, and although an eating disorder, certainly for me and in my experience, is about kind of asserting independence, about having something for yourself. And to be honest, when I developed my eating disorder, it was kind of my way of forging something for myself, and I wanted a way to cope with what had happened to me with the abuse. And that was kind of my way of stamping my 2 feet and saying, right, I'm going to be strong, I'm going to cope. And unfortunately that came in the way of refusing food, but it was kind of a very determined part of myself. So it was kind of like it used all of my strength and all of my resources that I had in a negative way. When I started to recover, I had to learn to use that stubbornness and determinedness, and the strength that I'd used to put to starving or overexercise, I had to put towards my recovery and towards being able to be on my own. And I became very dependent when I first recovered, and I needed people, and I needed people around me. I still do. When I have problems now, I need my friends, I need my family, and so I learned to kind of turn to other people, and kind of got very used to being around people, especially my mum. and especially some of my close friends. And I kind of had this discussion today in therapy that there are a couple of relationships where I became incredibly close, that if I needed that person day or night, I could pick up the phone. And that became a two-way thing. I would do it for other people, they would do it for me. And I kind of got caught in this cycle of kind of supporting other people, because I knew at some point maybe I'd need support and I needed them to be there for me. So it was very hard to break those bonds. They were bonds with people who had similar difficulties to me and who had struggles. And they were the only people who really got what it was like to be me. And so when I was feeling isolated, when I was feeling alone, I turned to those people. And I think that was the first stage in me learning to turn to people, so that in the time that I would be alone, I used to find it very, very difficult being at home in a dark house because of some of the memories, and it would flip me out. I had no means of coping. I was just kind of like freaking out, and I would use things like self-injury and stuff as a way of coping with that time. What I have learned this year with some of the difficulties I've had is to find a voice and to be able to say, right, I'm at the house on my own, I'm really, really struggling, I need to do something. Okay, pick up the phone. Okay, can I come and see you, even if it's just for coffee? Go out, go for coffee. Do something that kind of helps me cope. So if you're finding yourself alone and you're not coping with that alone time, what I would say to you is, if you can find healthy ways of coping rather than the destructive ways, which could have been, for some people it's binging and purging, for some people, like I've said, it's cutting themselves, some people overdose, some people go back to bed and pull their covers way over their heads and don't, sort of hibernate and don't come out. That if you're struggling with being alone, that you do pick up that phone and you call somebody. You write to somebody at the collab. There's people, quite often people we're around, I'm checking the Freedom Fighters YouTube channel. I'm there to respond to emails and stuff. Other ways of coping, I don't know. I know I spoke to one friend who was saying that she found herself really angry at something that had been going on with her treatment, and that she just sort of picked up the phone to her mum and was like, do you know what, I need to get out, I'm going to go and buy some fags. And they got on their bike and they cycled, and they bought their fags and they cycled back, and just that letting go stopped them from sort of self-harming. And even if you can't do that every single time, if you can do that once in 4 times, that's progress. And then maybe once in 3 times, and then you're doing that every single time. And I find that incredibly important. And I think that you should really congratulate yourself if you're able to kind of cope in that way. Being alone can be a trigger for a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and even without this kind of self-reflection, what I would encourage you to do is build up that self-reflection, is to talk to people, is explore things. Because I know for me, when I first started trying to challenge with being alone, I didn't understand how difficult it was for me. I didn't get that would be difficult for me. And so, for example, when I'd been in the hospital and I had time at home on my own, it wasn't until I had that time that I realised I fucking freaked out. I would just take a bunch of pills just to be able to put me to sleep, because I couldn't cope another second being on my own. And I think that's, you almost need to experience that stuff to learn ways of coping with that stuff. And I think that's incredibly important. I sort of think finally that, like I've said, it's experience, live it, learn it, and it's only through experiences do we learn to pick up ways of coping, especially when we're on our own, and if we're sort of having urges to self-harm or to binge and purge, or whatever way you cope, whether it's drinking, like it's been mentioned this week, abusing medication, or anything, whatever aspects of self-injury. I think it's very important that you have a base, and that base doesn't actually have to be a therapist or anything like that. Yes, those things can be brilliant. When I really struggle, I can pick up the phone and speak to my psychiatrist, but that isn't always practical for people, and that's why I'm saying I would encourage you to build up ways of the things that are around you, look to what's around you and sort of think, well, hang on, right, I'm really struggling. I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to see my godkids. I don't feel up to that. Okay, I'm going to maybe go and sit in Starbucks and have coffee on my own. And all those things are ways that I've coped before. And yeah, I hope that some of those can help you. And yeah, just know that you might want to be alone, but you don't need to be alone. And there's numerous ways around that can kind of help you. Okay guys, I'll speak to you next week. Okay, bye.